The sky above Starfall shimmered that evening with the pale bruising of dusk, streaks of amethyst and pearl stretching across the horizon like the aftermath of some long-forgotten swordstroke. Far below the castle's sheer white towers, the Torrentine River thundered against the rocks in endless applause, as though the land itself remembered the day a star had fallen here and set its mark in steel. None alive had witnessed that descent, but every Dane heir grew up on the tale. A blazing shard from the heavens, hotter than any forge fire, buried in the dry riverbed until the first sword of the morning quenched it and drew from the cooled ruin a blade almost as pale as moonlight dawn. And now dawn lay naked upon a velvet cushion inside the ancient sept, ethereal in the dying light. Its milky metal drank color rather than reflecting it. Even the faint glimmer of torch flame seemed to bend around the sword's edges, smothered in a gleam that was less brightness than quiet promise. Edric Dane, newly come of age, knelt before the sword with all the solemnity of a boy who feared he might never measure up. Outside, a storm gathered. Inside, destiny waited. Arya Stark paused at the threshold, wolf-silent despite the way her heart hammered. She had covered leagues of sea and sand to reach this moment, yet the hush in that chamber felt heavier than every mile behind her. The girl who had once been called Arya, Cat of the Canals, Mercy, and darkly nameless things in Bravos, now stood cloaked only in her own skin. Threadbare traveler's garb, mended so many times the patches made their own pattern. Yet beneath the road dust and loose braid of dark hair was a gaze so unflinching the stars themselves might have blenched. Edric lifted his head. "You should not be here," he said, though his voice betrayed more curiosity than anger. "The sword of the morning must be worthy, I know." Arya's words cut through the quiet like a thrown dagger. "Does the sword decide, or do you?" Rain began to tumble against the sept's crystalline windows, each drop catching a flash of purple and gold from the final shreds of sunset. The world held its breath. Footsteps echoed behind Arya as Ser Ulmer of the Kingsguard, one of Queen Daenerys's new Dragonsteel knights, rumored to possess eyes as sharp as any raven, appeared and halted, uncertain whether to draw steel of his own. No matter. Arya had passed unseen through the kitchens, the stables, and 3 separate patrols. A single knight would hardly stop her now, but she did not advance. Instead, she bowed, so low her forehead touched chilled stone. "I have come for the blade," she said, voice soft. "Not to steal it, not to break it, only to prove myself to it." Edric's breath caught at the audacity. "You think dawn will sing in your hand? I think it already hums in my dreams." From the darkness of the rain-soaked yard came a distant howl. Nymeria's call, rolling and wild, answered by a far-off chorus of 100 wolves. The sound flowed through the glass like wind through a broken window pane, and each torch flickered. Ser Ulmer stepped back, his composure faltering as Arya straightened. The wolves of the Kingswood, the Riverlands, even as far as the Reach, had begun to move at her silent summons during the long trek south. Travelers whispered that the north itself had learned to walk on 4 feet and shadows. Edric rose. Tradition forbade him to lift dawn without the rites. Yet there were older laws than parchment. The law of need, the law of the last song before darkness swallowed the world. And on every raven's wing these past moons, one question beat louder than any drum of war. Where was Azor Ahai reborn? Some called it Jon Snow, some Queen Daenerys, some even the shattered ghost of Stannis' pride. But the flames Melisandre tended in Dragonstone had begun to show a girl with a direwolf's eyes, standing beneath a sky ripped open by falling stars. Edric wrapped dawn-skin fingers around the sword's hilt. The metal felt almost alive, warm as breath. With deliberate care, he lifted the blade and offered it across his forearms, palms upward in supplication. "Show me," he whispered, unsure to whom. The sword, the gods, the stranger before him. Arya stepped forward. The girl who had once been no one now moved like every inch of her knew exactly who she was. When her fingers closed about Dawn's grip, she felt no bite of cold, only a spreading heat, steady, relentless, pulsing in rhythm with her heart. It was as though the steel thought her blood worthy of keeping pace. Ser Ulmer exhaled in wonder. The sword's pale light lifted, faint but undeniable, bathing Arya's face in a ghost-white shimmer. The chamber's shadows retreated. Rain lashed the windows harder, thunder rumbling like distant drakes. Edric bowed his head, not to surrender, but to honor an answer older than any vow he might utter. A wolf's howl sounded again, closer now, echoing off the stones. Arya turned the blade, testing balance. Dawn moved with a swiftness that did not belong to forge and whetstone alone. It felt weightless, almost longing to be swung. She let it rest against her shoulder. "There's a war coming," she said. "Not the one of queens or crowns. Something colder." Edric looked into her eyes and saw night skies full of ice-blue comets. He thought of ancient tales that named dawn a blade forged from the heart of a fallen star. He thought of the prophecy carved on the walls of Ahai, older than Valyria, older than the first men's runes. When the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt to wake dragons from stone. Generators of prophecy had long assumed dragons meant fire-breathers, kings meant men, and smoke meant the pyres of queens. Yet here was a wolf girl clad in road dust, rainwater dripping from her hair, holding a star-forged sword that glimmered like dawn over snow. And outside the clouds bled red lightning as if some unseen wound had opened across the sky. A fortnight later the narrow sea lay behind them, though Arya scarcely noticed the salty wind whip at her cloak. She stood in the prow of a small Bravosi caravel, dawn sheathed across her back beneath waxed canvas. Stormbreakers crashed off the bow. Nymeria's pack swam the waters in eerily silent formation alongside, gray shapes knifing through tide like living torpedoes. Fishmongers gaped from the rocky shorelines as lean direwolves hauled themselves out, shook dry, and loped after the ship's shadow, always keeping pace. Westeros smelled of pine and peat and the faint copper tang of distant bloodshed. At nights Arya dreamed of ice spiders large as hounds, of blue-eyed corpses marching past the ruined castles of the north, of her brother Jon standing before a living blizzard, Longclaw's blade cracked and blackened in his hand. She woke each dawn with dawn itself pressed against her cheek, its metal warm where it touched her skin, as though the sword sought to steal the chill of her nightmares. In the hold, a red priestess tended a brazier of coals. She called herself Thala, though Arya suspected no priest's name was truly their own. Thala's eyes were whirlpools of bronze and shadow, swirling whenever she stared into flame. The captain had taken her aboard at Dragonstone on Daenerys's writ, though the queen never appeared in person. Supposedly Daenerys gathered her strength for a push north, dragons wheeling above the Dreadfort's smoking ruins while unsullied legions marched under black banners bearing a red three-headed dragon. Yet even dragons could burn, and winter cared little for fire when the night grew endless. Thala greeted Arya each morning with the same question, "Have you felt the burning yet?" And each time Arya answered, "It burns every waking moment." In truth it did. Dawn's hilt sometimes seared her palm, yet it left no mark, more warning than wound. Once, deep in the belly of the ship, she drew the blade and watched the narrow cabin glow in sunless radiance. Its light was not golden but colorless, as if it carved away darkness rather than illuminating it. Thala watched from the doorway, lips parted, whispering Valyrian prayers. "Lightbringer?" the priestess breathed when Arya slid dawn back into its scabbard. "Not yet," Arya answered. "Not until blood seals the forging." Thala's brows knit. "You speak as though you have read Azor Ahai's legend." "I listened," Arya replied. "A man once told me a girl could learn more with ears than eyes." She did not add that the man had been half-mad and wholly brilliant, living on an island of faces, nor that he'd claimed truth wore many masks, prophecy most of all. Yet his murmured lessons in the dark vaults of the House of Black and White now shone as brightly in her memory as the sword's ghostlight in her hand. When at last the caravel anchored off White Harbor, Arya strode down the gangplank beneath banners flapping with Manderley mermaids. The port was choked with refugees, gaunt faces, frost-splintered shields, wagons laden with weeping children. Rumors flew on every cold breath. The others were only 4 days' march behind them. Winterfell had already emptied its granaries. King Jon Snow arrayed what forces remained on the last river, and Queen Daenerys's dragons could not bear the unnatural cold once north of Moat Cailin. A rider in Night's Watch black approached, tall, broad-shouldered, with a white streak slashing through his beard. "Lady Arya?" he asked. "I was told to welcome you, but scarcely believed." It was Dolorous Ed Tollett, though his voice held little of its old wryness. All the humor had frozen to brittle silence. "I've no taste for lady," Arya said. "Show me the road east." Ed gestured to a waiting rangy brown mare. "You'll find little comfort there, my lady." "My Arya, I'm not looking for comfort." She swung into the saddle, Dawn's unfamiliar weight reassuring against her spine. The wolves parted crowds before her, a living tidal wave of fur and fangs, and parents clutched children while Sellswords fumbled for blades they dared not draw. Not until they reached the King's Road did Ed ask, "Is it true? You bring a dawn for the darkness?" Arya tightened her cloak. "I bring a possibility. And hope. Hope's a song for inside walls. I bring a sword." That night they camped beneath a twisted heart tree whose red leaves shivered even though no wind stirred. Ed dozed in a bedroll, one hand near a half-drawn dirk, while Arya sat cross-legged before Dawn laid across her knees. She waited for the sword's warmth, but tonight it lay cold. She thought of Lightbringer's forging 3 attempts. They said, the last ending in the hero driving the blade through the heart of his love. Sacrifice. Fire given life or life given to fire. She eyed the heart tree's face and wondered if it too demanded sacrifice. The sap in its bark glistened like blood in moonlight. Footsteps cracked snow behind her. Thala emerged from darkness, coals glowing in a small clay brazier she carried before her like an infant. "I dreamt of you," the priestess said. "You forged a blade of dawnlight upon a forge of weirwood roots." Arya studied the tree. Its red eyes wept. "I will not kill someone I love to wake a sword. Perhaps love takes many forms." Thala extended the brazier, embers swirling. "Would you let the world burn if burning is the price to save it?" Arya's jaw tightened. "The world has burned before. It will again, but not by my hand." Lightning flickered far off, green, not white. Dragonfire meeting sorcery of ice. Dawn keened softly in its scabbard, like a puppy sensing thunder. Arya wrapped fingers around the hilt. Warmth flooded back into the metal. Thala bowed her head. "Then let the blade decide." 3 days north of Winterfell, snow began to fall sideways. The wolves vanished into drifts, shadows among shadows. Ed muttered of abandoning horses before frost bit their lungs. Yet the beasts pressed on, driven by something in Arya's gaze. Columns of refugees poured southward, whispering of a storm front that walked upright, clad in frost-plated armor. Sometimes they told of a man who rode ahead of the blizzard on a pale horse, carrying a spear tipped with swirling sapphire flame. "Night King," they breathed, though maesters insisted the original Night's King had been slain 8,000 years past. On the 4th morning, banners snapped atop Winterfell's battlements, dire wolf and dragon together, though the wolf flew higher. Jon Snow strode to meet Arya in the outer yard. His eyes brimmed with relief and fear in equal measure. "You shouldn't have come," he said, voice rough. "Yet I'm damned glad to see you. I came because I must." Arya reached over her shoulder, drew Dawn. Gasps rippled among gathered soldiers as the blade bled silver light onto drift-slick stones. "This sword chose me at Starfall." Jon's gaze flicked to Thala behind her, then back. "And you believe you are Azor Ahai?" "I believe prophecy rarely fits neat," Arya replied. "And I believe the darkness does not care whose name the songs remember." He touched the pommel of Longclaw, its bastard's grin seeming dull beside Dawn's glow. "I've seen dragon flame fail against them," he murmured. "If Dawn cuts ghost flesh, we'll need you at the vanguard. We'll need more than one sword." Arya's glance swept the courtyard. Hasty fortifications, barrels of dragonglass arrows, unsullied drilling shield wall formations while northern archers notched obsidian-tipped shafts. Regal perched atop the broken maester's tower, wings mantled, steam plume curling from nostrils. Yet even Dragonscale trembled under the cold that seeped from the north. That night in the halls they feasted on thin stew and thicker determination. Sansa spoke of evacuation routes. Bran, pale and distant, murmured of ravens and roots and rivers frozen beneath footprints that never melted. Daenerys arrived near midnight, armor of blackened steel trimmed in red gold, silver hair unbound. Her violet eyes lingered on Dawn with something like envy or awe. "My dragons were born of fire," she said to Arya alone by the dying hearth. "But your sword feels like the promise that fire itself will be reborn." "Promises are knives," Arya answered. "They cut both ways." Daenerys regarded her a long moment. "If the prophecy chooses you, I will follow. The living need unity more than titles." "Then leave titles at the door," Arya said. The long night returned on the 7th day. A hush fell before dawn. No raven cawed, no wolf howled. Even the wind seemed afraid. Soldiers manning Winterfell's ramparts peered into darkness and saw darkness stare back with bright blue eyes. As the first shard of pale morning glimmered on the edge of the world, the Night King appeared at the tree line, mounted upon a stallion made of moonfrost. Behind him ranks unfolded, dead free folk, dead Karstarks, dead Lannister sellswords caught in the riverlands and frozen where they bled. Banners of rot fluttered on shattered spears. Snowflakes did not fall. They hovered, suspended, as though time itself forgot its motion. Jon Snow paced the battlements with Ghost at heel. Daenerys circled overhead astride Drogon, though the great black dragon's flames sputtered each time the cold winds howled. Every face in the castle turned toward Arya as she donned brigandine leather the color of old secrets, pulled Nymeria's fur cloak tight, and mounted the crenellation above the gate. Dawn glittered restless in her grip. She did not wait for horns. She vaulted the battlements, struck the ground roll swift, snow bursting around her boots, and strode toward the silent army alone. Nymeria padded beside her, larger now than any horse, amber eyes fierce. Wolves materialized from woods and ruins until a pack 1,000 strong fanned out along Arya's flanks. Their growls shook the ground. The Night King raised a hand. A hush swallowed everything but the hammering of Arya's heart. Frost sizzled on Dawn's edge. Arya wondered if the blade would sing true or shatter. She whispered a name to herself. Needle, Longclaw, Oathkeeper, all the steel that had carried her family's hopes, and then she ran. She ran as she had run through Braavos' alleyways, as she had run across rooftops in King's Landing with Gendry laughing behind her, as she had run beneath red keep cellars chasing cats for a swordmaster who believed every shadow hid a lesson. She ran until wind howled in her ears and the world narrowed to the single heartbeat thrum of blood in veins. The first wight swung a rusted halberd. Arya ducked, Dawn's point flickering like a lightning tongue. The milky steel sliced clean, leaving no resistance but a whisper of cold. The wight crumpled, blue fire extinguished in its eyes. She leapt, rolled, slashed, each motion so instinct-sure she could swear the sword moved first and she followed. Wolves dove past, tearing undead limbs. Snow exploded beneath their paws. The Night King dismounted, spear blooming with frozen starlight. He advanced, silent as a winter's horror, each step cracking the earth. Arya circled. Around them the battlefield dissolved into chaos. Unsullied pikes braced against torrents of dead, dragon flame lighting momentary islands of color before snuffing out. Yet inside Arya's focus there was only the point of the spear and the knowledge that prophecy demanded a forging by blood. Their weapons met. Dawn screamed, a high, ringing note that set wolves whimpering. Frost bloomed across the blade, creeping toward Arya's hand. She pivoted, letting momentum carry Frost past, then riposted, carving a crescent through black sky. The Night King parried with inhuman quickness. Ice shards sparkled like shattered gems. Again they clashed, again Dawn keened. Arya felt the sword hungry for heat. She thought of Azor Ahai's Nissa Nissa, of love pierced to birth flame, and her gaze locked on Nymeria standing beside the Night King's steed, snarling. The sacrifice? No, Nymeria had guided her too far. Instead, Arya recalled someone who had once called her little sister, whose heart had already bled for the north. Jon. He fought near the Weirwood Grove, Longclaw hacked in two by some giant of ice. He stumbled, frost shock biting his face. The Night King sensed Arya's hesitation and drove his spear. She barely twisted aside, tip grazing leather to draw a line of frostburn on her ribs. Pain blossomed. Dawn pulsed, flare bright, drinking the hurt. Not sacrifice, Arya hissed through clenched teeth. Choice. She dove beneath the spear, came up inside the Night King's reach, and drove Dawn through his chest with every ounce of grief she carried for Ned, for Robb, for Mother, for lost childhood. The blade slid through like sunrise through night. A sound like cracking glaciers boomed. Frost exploded outward in a halo, engulfing Arya. Wolves, dead, living alike. For an instant, no one breathed. Then the Night King's form shattered. First the spear, then his armor, then the body itself, all disintegrating to snow-fine ash that swirled upward in a spiraling cyclone. Dawn glared white-hot. The cyclone burst into flame. Not red, not orange, but the pure white of newborn stars. Snowflakes melted mid-air. Whites collapsed, lifeless again. Blue fire vanishing like candles quenched. The fire rose, then poured into Dawn's blade. Arya screamed at the heat, but she did not release the sword. She thought of Needle's weight in her hand as a child, of Sirio's voice. What do we say to death? And she answered silently, not today. The heat cooled. Dawn's glow settled into something deeper than silver, a radiance that felt alive. Arya fell to one knee, breathing frost. Snow melted around her in widening rings. Nymeria nudged her shoulder, whining Sionsi. Arya lifted her eyes to the ruined army. Silence reigned, broken only by ragged human sobs of wonder. Above, the sky began to pale. Morning truly arrived. Not false dawn, but the first honest day Westeros had seen in years. Hours later, inside Winterfell's hall, maesters fussed over Arya's frost-kissed wound. She let them, though her mind drifted. Dawn rested across her lap, its new light a warm hum rather than a blinding flare. Lightbringer, perhaps, though the name tasted strange on her tongue. Jon limped to her side. You saved us. We saved ourselves, she answered, pulling a blanket higher. The sword was only a mirror. Mirrors can blind as well as reveal. He rested a hand on her shoulder. They'll sing of this. Let them sing quiet. Arya closed her eyes. She felt as though she had leapt across a chasm and found herself mid-air still searching for the far side. The war was won, but the wounds of winter ran deep. Rotted crops, shattered keeps, an uneasy peace between Dragon Queen and Northern Lords. Light might banish darkness, yet dawn always casts new shadows. Thala approached, kneeling. Azor Ahai walks among us, she proclaimed. Arya opened one eye, tired amusement in her smile. Azor Ahai sleeps, she corrected. Wake me when the world needs forging again. She drifted into dreams where swords were feathers, wolves ran in meadows of starlight, and the sun rose each dawn without need of blood or prophecy. Only the simple promise that night never lasts forever. Somewhere far to the south, in the crypt-silent libraries of Old Town, an acolyte noted the date and penned in careful ink. The long night ended when a girl of many names raised a star-forged sword and taught even prophecy to bow. Let it be known that Dawn, reborn as Lightbringer, chose not a king, nor queen, nor dragon lord, but a wolf who had learned the faces of the world and worn them all. And in choosing, the sword reminded every mortal heart that the truest fires are kindled not by sacrifice of another's love, but by the courage to wield one's own. May the chronicles remember her thus. Arya Stark of Winterfell, sword of the morning, slayer of night, and friend to every dawn yet to come. The morning after the Night King's fall, Winterfell seemed to breathe again, exhaling steam from every roof tile as the sun's first full light in years melted the frost that had encased the castle like crystal mail. Pale rivulets burbled down stone gutters, carrying blackened fragments of shattered whites and the last remnant dust of an ancient terror. Crows cawed in argument over who owned the feast, as though the natural world, insects, birds, and small scavengers, were holding parliament to reclaim their dominion from death. Arya watched from the rampart beside Jon, Dawn resting across her knees. She recognized the castle's heartbeat. Smithy hammers striking again, distant laughter when a barrel of mead was discovered intact, the squeal of hinges unstuck by thawing grease. Life returned one tiny noise at a time. John's gaze lingered on the sword. "It still glows," he murmured, voice raw with disbelief. "It hums too," Arya replied. "Listen long enough and it's like feeling the tide push inside your veins." She flexed numbed fingers where frostbite had flirted with her bones. The warmth gently seeping from the blade was the only reason she still felt them. Below, Daenerys paced the courtyard with Missandei at her elbow and Grey Worm half a step behind. Snowmush squelched beneath unsullied sandals as they formed ranks to salute her. The queen's silver-white hair had iced over during the battle, beads of frozen sweat sparkling like diamonds. Every salute struck like a drum in the still air. Thump, thump, thump. Rhythm of discipline that never yielded. "She has decisions to make," Jon muttered. "So do we." Arya's eyes tracked the roofline where Nymeria curled, oversized paws dangling over the eaves. "There's always another war, but not always for the same reasons." Jon hesitated, then asked the question gnawing at him. "Does the prophecy end here, or does it ask more?" "Prophecies never end," Arya said. "They just change their masks. When one face is tired, another smiles underneath." He touched her shoulder. "If the realm demands a hero, you might yet wear that face." She shrugged lightly beneath wolf fur. "Let them demand loaves of bread instead. We've had our fill of heroes." 2 days later, ravens fanned out from Winterfell, black motes against a sky scraped clean of cloud, carrying missives bearing the seals of both Stark and Targaryen. One parchment called Banners South for harvest relief. Another invited lords to council at Riverrun, neutral ground between dragon and direwolf. A third scroll bore only the mark of a sword hilt wrapped in a direwolf's tail. Arya's newly fashioned sigil as Sword of the Morning. It was a challenge, though politely worded, for every lord who still warred from habit to look northward and account for the dawn bought with northern blood. Sansa drafted the letters herself, quill-biting vellum with crisp authority. Her ink had frozen during the long night. Now it flowed. Arya remained restless. She sparred at dawn with Grey Worm, both of them too bruised to enjoy the clatter of sticks but unwilling to rust. She tramped the outer yard teaching wildling children to grip dragonglass knives, rewarding them with apple slices when they nicked straw targets. She listened at Bran's bedside as he whispered of ravens circling ruined castles, of cold fingers still twitching where fire had not reached. The war was won, but loose nightmares wandered like sparks on dead leaves. That evening, in a cramped solar above the great hall, Arya found Daenerys alone, pouring wine into 2 clay cups. Smoke from tallow candles danced invisible currents between them. On the table lay 3 blades, a Valyrian steel arak recovered from a melted white lieutenant, a Dornish spearpoint of red sandglass, and one of Qyburn's teeth-thin scorpion bolts. "Tokens," Daenerys said, gesturing. "Each a piece of the war we finished." "Finished," Arya echoed. "Ask the Riverlands. They'll still bury dead come full moon." Daenerys inclined her head. "Wars linger like embers under ash. I should know." She sipped. "But symbols matter, Arya. We have yours." Her eyes flicked to dawn resting against Arya's chair. Light against shadow. It may mend more wounds than legions of healers. Arya tasted her wine. It smelled of cherries, sharp and sweet, summer memory. Symbols are dangerous toys. Then perhaps leave toys to those who need them. Daenerys set her cup down. "I want you by my side at Riverrun. Let the lords see the dawn with their own eyes. You think me a lantern to guide them. I think you a sword to cut through their excuses." Arya twirled the cup between scarred fingers, gaze distant. "I'm not fond of courts. This one will sit on muddy grass under open sky," the queen promised.
"No marble pillars, no silk cushions."
"Field council, a soldier's parley." Arya studied her. "You trust me." Daenerys's lips curved, gentle but weary. "I trust what chooses you." 3 nights later, the baggage train rolled south. Sansa rode at its heart, cloaked in wolf gray trimmed with crimson. She left Regent Robert Glover to oversee Winterfell while Bran's ravens kept vigil over the north. Jon led vanguard scouts, mounted on a rangy black gelding with Ghost loping ahead, nose twitching for ambush scents. Daenerys flew staggered right flank, Rhaegal's shadow sweeping through clouds like a green thunderhead. Grey Worm and half the Unsullied formed a pearl-lit backbone of spears, their ranks punctuated by Karstark archers hardened by frost. Arya refused a horse. She moved on foot, slipping between wagons, sleeping at odd hours in hay bales or beneath Nymeria's belly. Dawn remained strapped along her spine, wrapped in rough canvas to blunt its glow. At campfires she sharpened smaller knives while wildling mothers told their children tales of the wolf girl whose eyes burned red when steel met frost. Arya never corrected them. Stories often shape truth quicker than truth shaped stories. On the fifth evening, as tents sprang like mushrooms along the western bank of the Green Fork, Arya felt the first prickling warning ripple along Dawn's grip. She froze. The pommel warmed, then cooled, cycling like a heartbeat in shock. Nymeria growled low, hackles lifting. Ghost answered, head snapping toward distant brush. A horn blared in the dark, a single deep note of challenge, not alarm. Figures emerged from treeline. Tall shadows clad in plate hammered from odd metals, half silver, half mirror black. Their helms bore antler motifs. Banners fluttered behind, showing a stag and comet locked in battle. At their head rode a woman astride a mountain mare, hair like moonlit straw. From her belt hung a sword twin in pallor to dawn. Its aura scraped sparks from Arya's spine. Daenerys banked low overhead, Drogon roaring a warning. Jon galloped forward with half a dozen brothers of the watch. Torches converged as soldiers bristled. Arya stepped into the torchlight. The newcomer dismounted, helm under arm, revealing fierce hazel eyes above a broken nose. She dipped her chin, respect, but not deference. Ser Galladon Rivers, she introduced, voice husky. Knight of the Comet Court. Comet Court, Jon echoed, reins creaking in his gloved grip. A fellowship forged the night the red comet burned the sky, Galladon explained. We pledged to guard relics fallen from that blaze. She touched the sword at her flank. Meteorite steel, sister to yours, or so our smiths believe. Arya's fingers tingled. She felt drawn as a lodestone to iron. She unwrapped Dawn's hilt, revealing a faint glow. The strangers inhaled as one. Galladon's voice lowered. We sensed Dawn awaken. I rode north to learn why. Daenerys landed nearby, folding massive wings close. Torchlight flickered across scales. If you come in peace, welcome. If otherwise, Galladon raised a gauntlet. Peace, yet knowledge bears claws. Our seers claim fragments of the comet still slumber beneath Riverland's soil, cold and hungry. If woken by wrong hands, they could birth blades as fell as Lightbringer is fair. Jon's posture locked. Who would seek such doom? Galladon's gaze shifted toward the distant south. A Sellsword company called the 4 and 40. They sniff for myths to sell. Rumor has them camped near High Heart, digging nightly. They believe forging a sword from black starstone will grant power equal to yours. She nodded at Arya. Opposite poles of the same lodestone, perhaps. If one bright blade ends long night, a dark twin might herald endless dusk. Arya met Jon's eyes, then Daenerys's. Light and shadow, she murmured. Masks beneath masks. She felt dawn stir, a subtle thrumming like bees in summer clover. The blade wanted to move. Daenerys looked at Galladon. Ride with us to Riverrun. Present your warning before every lord. Then we hunt. Galladon hesitated, brow furrowed. I serve the Comet Court. Serve the living, Arya said. Stars will understand. After a moment, Galladon clasped Arya's forearm in knightly grip. Very well, Sword of the Morning. Let us see if dawn can outshine twilight twice. Travel slowed as spring fought winter's corpse along riverbanks. Fetid patches of meltwater hid pits where wagon wheels sank. Refugee bands scurried ahead like field mice. Each dusk, wildfire-colored sunsets turned puddles to gold. Each dawn, fog veiled the world in muffled gray. Rumors seeped through the fog. Euron Greyjoy's fleet roamed the stepstones. Golden Company remnants harried supply caravans. And in the east, Karth had closed its gates to all but red priests and iron-scaled merchants. The realm's cracks widened, the longer armies remained in motion. At Maidenpool, Arya slipped from camp into night streets, curious to test the sword's pull. She prowled alleys where smuggled relics fetched fortunes. Pirate captains in silk sashes boasted of meteor shards small as thumbnails selling for a barge of saffron. She shadowed one dealer into a basement lit by floating candles. His wares included starstone beads emitting faint blue heat. Dawn responded with a tremor of disdain, as though it could smell counterfeit dusk metal. Arya left the room before coin changed hands, uninterested in starting a massacre over trinkets. The following dusk, the column reached an abandoned sept on Green Fork's southern spur. Its stained glass windows lay shattered, mosaics of mother and warrior trampled into gravel. Inside, hollow pews echoed the coughs of unsullied posted at doors. Arya spread a map over the broken altar. She pinned corners with dagger hilts while Galadin laid out comet iron slivers retrieved by her order, each piece heavier than size suggested, glinting dull violet. Jon joined them with a clay jar of cider. "Riverrun is 2 marches," he said. "High Heart sits here." He tapped the map, fingertip landing atop a hill shaped like a sleeping giant. "If those cells words truly dig, we ride after council." Galadin exhaled. "Comet iron can warp spirits. Temper it wrong and the blade will crave blood." Arya remembered the feel of the Night King's spear, cold spiral of hunger. "We can't let them forge anything." Daenerys strode in, cloak flecked with rain. "We may need another dragon." Jon frowned. "Drogon flies strong." "Strong isn't infinite," Daenerys countered. "If forging dark metal demands sorcery, Dragonflame might be the only true counter." Galadin studied her. "You mean to hatch another egg?" The queen considered the violet shard on the altar. "Or use fallen starfire to waken dormant shell. Dragon and comet share birth in the furnace of the heavens." Her eyes haunted. "But magic breeds price." Arya ran thumb over Dawn's fuller. "Sometimes price is choice, not sacrifice. We needn't bleed the world if we choose clever." Sansa entered then, the measured calm of command wrapped around her like a second cloak. "Council in an hour," she announced. She glanced at the shards. "Keep them hidden. Some lords will covet more than peace." Arya nodded. "And what do you covet, sweet sister?" Sansa's smile was a blade under silk. "A kingdom that sleeps through the next winter without waking in terror." Riverrun's fields bloomed patchy green where wildfire had scorched Lannister siege works years earlier. Makeshift pavilions ringed the castle like petals. Stark gray, Targaryen red-black, Tyrell gold-green, Martell sunspear, Baratheon crowned stag. Renly's colors resurrected by Stormlanders unwilling to wear Tommen's lion. Even the Ironborn hoisted a ragged kraken pennant, though their contingent numbered mere dozens. Of the Reach lords, only House Hightower came in force, white sails on the river reflecting sunbursts brighter than their wan lord's face. The council convened beneath open sky exactly as Daenerys promised. A long oval table fashioned from wagon planks, benches scavenged from half-collapsed chapels, canvas overhead to block drizzle. Every lord wore sword or dagger. Every retainer gripped spear or crossbow. Yet despite tension, the air held possibility, new soil awaiting first seed. Arya took no seat. She stood behind Sansa's right shoulder, Dawn sheathed across back, Nymeria curled at her feet radiating silent menace. Galadin positioned herself opposite, near Daenerys. Between them, the map of Westeros lay pinned by twin swords, Dawn and Galadin's pale twin Cometfang. Their milky hues cast overlapping circles of light onto parchment, making rivers appear liquid silver, mountains frosted white. Lord Tyto's Blackwood spoke first, praising gods old and new for victory. Ser Garland Tyrell followed, urging grain shipments north. Then came a lean man in salmon-pink surcoat, Lord Jonos Bracken, who argued the realm must focus on rebuilding roads, not chasing fairy tales about dark swords. Galadin answered with steel facts. The 4 and 40 had bribed quarrymen, excavated 200 weight of comet iron, and were rumored to possess a Bravosi alchemist versed in demon steel. Arguments erupted. Some insisted the threat was minor banditry. Others cited Valyrian histories of cursed blades that drank souls. It was not until Arya stepped forward that silence fell. She rested hand on Dawn's pommel and spoke in a voice not raised yet undeniably binding. "I killed the Night King," she began. "He split frost with a spear born of black starstone. I felt its hunger." Her gaze swept them each in turn. "We thought prophecy ended, yet here stands more prophecy. Call it omen, call it chance. Doesn't matter. The world doesn't give crowns for ignoring storms. We ride. We shatter every shard. We bury the rest beneath walls taller than hotter." Lord Hightower leaned forward, ring-studded fingers steepled. "And if dragonflame cannot melt comet iron?" Daenerys answered, eyes glacial. "Then I will drown it in the sea." The council's decree came at dusk. A joint force would ride at dawn, led by Arya and Galadin, while Jon and Daenerys flew reconnaissance. Sansa remained to negotiate supply routes. Unsullied phalanxes volunteered half their number. The Hightowers sent engineers with siege oil. The Blackwoods dispatched archers mounted on greyhounds. Even reluctant Brackens coughed up scouts. It was, someone observed, the first truly united Westerosi host in living memory. Arya spent the night under stars beside the Tumblestone, kneeling at the river's edge. She submerged Dawn in moon-reflecting water. Ripples flared luminous around the blade, then calmed. Her reflection stared back, older, scarred, eyes full of tired thunder. She whispered to water that never answered, "Father, watch me tomorrow," and "Mother, forgive me if I fail," and finally, "Nissa Nissa, whoever you were, may no one ever bear your pain again." The water held each confession, then carried them downstream. Dawn pulsed once, warmth like a friend's hand on her shoulder, then fell still. They left before sunrise. Horses' breaths fogged turquoise while wheels creaked over grass still brittle with spring frost. Galadin rode flank command, her antlered helm catching dawnlight. Arya jogged ahead, wolves flowing around her like gray surf. Jon soared high on Regal, searching for dust plumes of diggers. Daenerys accompanied on Drogon, banking through ragged clouds. Snowmelt swelled riverbanks, but High Heart's ancient hill loomed dry, a bald knob of earth crowned by twisted weirwoods older than Empire. Smoke smudged its eastern slope. Cookfires, tents dotted clearings. Wooden frames rose around a pit yawning like a giant's wound. Miners in iron masks hauled winches, and at center stood a tall pavilion striped black and crimson. Banners outside bore 4 crossed swords and 40 silver coins. A Sellsword's joke writ large. Arya signaled. Unsullied advanced in silent blocks. Blackwood archers fanned left, knocking dragonglass arrowheads though their targets were living. Wind shifted. The camp sentries noticed shapes in mist. A horn shrieked. Sellswords scrambled, brandishing mismatched blades. Some mounted horses for flight. Others formed ragged ranks around the pit.
Jon dove, raigalessero ar scattering rux.
Flaming arrows rained from bracken bowstrings. Then Arya ran. Dawn drawn, canvas fluttering away like shed skin. The blade's glow intensified, reflecting sun not yet above horizon, turning her into silhouette inside a halo of pearl fire. Wolves surged. Unsullied spears glinted. The Sellswords broke before contact, half dropping weapons, half tripping over crates of, but not all. From the pavilion emerged a figure in lacquered steel patterned like Nye. T-sky, speckles of glassy onyx set into breastplate, dark cloak stitched with silver runes. He carried a long sword of black metal, edge serrated like shark teeth. The blade oozed faint mist, cold so intense it steamed when meeting warm air. The man's eyes blazed coal blue. His grin revealed filed teeth. "I am Iskar the Collector," he announced, voice reverberating as if hollows inside him amplified sound. "And you bring me Dawn's twin." Arya halted 10 paces away, lowering sword in guard. She felt Dawn recoil, not with fear but recognition. The black blade resonated like two tuning forks clanging. Frost sprayed from its edge, wilting grass. Galladon joined Arya, Comet Fong at guard. "Starstone should never know Forge's kiss," she declared. Iskar laughed. "Forge? Child, this iron shaped itself in the belly of a god. I am merely its herald." He advanced, dragging sword across earth. Frost trailed his step. Wolves snapped but shrank back, hackles flat under unnatural chill. Even Nymeria hesitated. Arya shifted weight, recalling the Night King. But this blade felt different, alive in a way the spear hadn't. Eager rather than hungry. "You think you can unmake dawn," she said. "I seek balance," Iskar mused. "Shadow for light, night for day. Without dusk, dawn blinds." He lunged. Steel collided. Dawn's pure note against Comet Fong's harsher ring, against the black sword's discordant screech. Each impact shook Iskar's pavilion. Tents collapsed under shockwave. Frost blossomed where black edge grazed ground. Embers flared where dawn deflected. Galladon darted left, carving arcs. Arya riposted center, footwork nimble as Bravosi water dance. Iskar met them both, spinning, ferocious. Jon circled above, searching for shot, but Drogon's rider circled too close. Risk of friendly flame was high. Unsullied encircled the pit, corralling miners. Wolves battled retreating mercenaries among tree roots. Snarls and screams blended into discord. Arya feinted, drawing Iskar's strike. Galladon capitalized, Comet Fong slicing his thigh. Black mist spurted, smelling of crushed charcoal. Iskar hissed, but instead of staggering, he absorbed Blade's impact, the mist-sealing wound as quickly as it opened. He slashed Galladon's pauldron. Comet Iron sang protest but held. Arya saw it then. The black sword's mist-stitched flesh. So long as he wielded it, wounds meant little. A patch of frost crept along Comet Fong's fuller where edges met, dulling Galladon's grip. Arya whispered to Dawn. The blade answered, brightening. She lunged not at Iskar, but at his sword, her edge meeting his flat at perfect angle. Pearl light traveled through contact, racing along jagged metal. A shriek like tortured glass erupted. Black mist recoiled as if burned. Iskar faltered. Galladon struck again, driving Comet Fong's pommel into his helm. Cracks spider-webbed lacquered steel. The black blade howled, a living thing ripped from host. Iskar's cry joined it. Pain and rage. Arya pressed, slicing downward. Dawn sheared through dark metal just above guard with a blinding flash. The black sword fractured into shards that fizzed into vapor, releasing a wave of heat so fierce snowmelt steamed and distant trees caught flame. Iskar collapsed, armor smoking. Without Blade's power, frost drained from him. Eyes dimmed to human brown. He gasped, coughing up black-tinged spittle. Galladon caught his shoulder, but he shriveled like parchment in a brazier. In moments, only a soot outline remained. Silence spread, broken by distant crackle of burning brush. Wolves halted, sniffing air. Mercenaries tossed weapons aside, surrendering. Above, Regal trumpeted victory, while Drogon banked wide arcs, hurting smoke skyward. Arya exhaled. Dawn cooled. She glanced at Galladon. The night wiped sweat, brow shadowed. "Light wins," she said, voice hoarse. "For now," Arya answered. She stared at fragments of black iron crusting the ground, already crumbling to ash. Where Dawn's light touched them, they smoldered into nothing. Shadow always regathers. Galladon sheathed Comet Fong. Then Dawn must learn to rise each morning. They buried the remaining Comet Iron at sea that summer, one chest welded shut by dragon flame, lowered beyond continental shelf where pressure might crush even myths. Galladon's Comet Court stood as wardens of what little or survived, swearing fealty neither to king nor queen but to the cycle of day and night, promising vigilance. Sansa's harvest trains reached Winterfell. Jon abdicated crown he never sought, naming Sansa queen in the north with a council of free folk at her side. He rode south with Daenerys to oversee a dragon-forged canal linking Blackwater Rush to Narrow Sea, employing thousands of idle arms. Some lords grumbled at taxes. Most paid, remembering frozen corpses hammering their gates. Arya refused titles. She wandered south then west, sometimes with Galladon, sometimes alone save Nymeria's shadow. She hunted bandits, settled disputes between fishing hamlets, taught children to read trails and their own hearts. Wherever she walked, dawn seemed brighter next day, though she never quite understood why. In Old Town, maesters debated whether dawn truly was Lightbringer or something newer. In Bravos, the kindly man smiled at whispers of a girl who carved paths for others' faces to shine. Across the sea, red priests lit bonfires in her honor. In Karth, warlocks plotted, craving sword gleam for filters. The world spun, sewing new stories from threads of old. One autumn twilight on the cliffs above Sunspear, Arya watched green waves gnaw sandstone. Galladon reclined nearby, helm off, hair tousled by salt air. Between them lay Dawn and Cometfong, tips planted in dry sand, hilts leaning like crossed signposts. The sword's pale lights mingled, painting tides amber. Galladon tossed a pebble seaward. "Think another darkness will come?" "Always," Arya said, "but so will dawn." She brushed fingertips over Dawn's fuller, feeling its patient warmth. "And maybe next time morning rises, someone else will carry it." "I'd like that." Galladon laughed softly. "You tire of being legend?" "I tire of being story," Arya murmured. "I'd rather be path." She rose, brushing sand from trousers. Nymeria padded up, eyes reflecting twin moons. Arya slung Dawn across her back, looked east where night lifted curtain to expose first hint of sunrise. "Come," she said to Galladon. "Let's see what the world looks like today." They walked inland, two silhouettes against violet dawn, swords glowing faintly as if sharing a private joke with the sky. Light teasing shadow, shadow greeting light, each eternally chasing the other across horizons yet unwritten. The road from Sunspear's cliffs curled inland like a lazy serpent, rising and dipping across dune-broken barrens where the wind piled saffron sand against shards of limestone. Early in the journey, Arya let her boots decide the tempo, trusting the easy lope she'd learned from Bravosi rooftops and Bravos' back alleys. Quick enough to devour distance, slow enough to listen. Galladon matched stride on her rangy dapple horse, helm dangling from one gauntlet fist, the antlers clinking softly with each step as if announcing a masquerade in some forgotten palace. Behind them, Nymeria padded in silence so absolute it swallowed hoofbeats. Further back, no trail of banners or pikemen followed. They had slipped away before sunrise, leaving only a charcoal scrawl for Sansa, gone to follow dawn's scent. Trust the wolves to find home. They kept west at first, across the painted desert where red cliffs rose like ribs of some buried colossus, past wells ringed by singing stone that thrummed when midday heat shimmered. Nights they slept beneath skies so hammered with stars the darkness itself seemed perforated, and dawn's glow blended with constellations until Arya felt the sword was merely one more point of fire chosen by fate and pulled earthward. Galladon spoke little around the campfire. When she did, her words trembled with the caution of someone measuring fate's weight against her own. She asked questions about Winterfell's wood smoke smell, about the taste of cold water scooped from White Knife, about the color of dawn after the Night King died. Arya answered each with fragments: scent, taste, hue. But more often she shrugged, gesturing to the sword. Some things live better in steel than in stories. On the seventh night, a salt wind rose from the west, hinting of breakers. A cluster of stone huts crowded the bluffs above the jade gates, torchlit windows flickering like restless eyes. They entered beneath an arch of driftwood hammered together with nails scavenged from wrecks. The village smelled of tar, smoked fish, and a deeper odor Arya recognized from Bravos' canals when bodies were dumped after midnight. Shapes loomed in doorways, fishermen with net-scarred hands, girls wearing eelskin cords around their necks, a hunched crone tapping a driftwood cane that sprouted barnacles. No one spoke greeting. Eyes tracked dawn's muted glow through its wrappings. A one-eyed man in captain's coat stepped forward. His voice rolled like distant surf. "What carries a wolf and a comet to Widow's Helm? And what price do they ask?" Galadin dismounted, gauntlet resting on Comet Fong. "Only questions," she said. "And perhaps passage on a swift ship." The one-eyed man spat sideways. "Ships leave at Queen's Tax now. The Silver Queen of Spicetown sets levy on every hull." Arya tilted her head. "Spicetown fell years ago. Pirates burned its piers." "So they did," the man replied. "But a queen of smoke and blood rose thereafter, crowning herself with star shards. She calls the harbor the lighthouse of twilight, tithes every sail that braves the wake." His remaining eye gleamed. "They say she bears an iron child in her belly, a blade yet unsharpened, forged of black ore and quicksilver prayers." Galadin's grip tightened. "Another piece of the comet. Or the same black sword regrown," Arya muttered. She remembered Iskar's blade disintegrating into vapor. Yet what if shards drifted, cooled, congealed? Light and shadow played endless games of rebirth. They traded a purse of silver wolves and a jar of Dornish firewine for 2 dark passage berths. The captain's ship was a squat cog named Ripple's End, its hull patched with mismatched planks like a beggar's quilt. Yet her masts were new pine and her crew nodded respect when Arya came aboard. Dawn bundled to her back. Nymeria trotted to the prow and settled like a figurehead. Jaws parted to taste wind. The tide pulled them west under a moon so thin it resembled the slash of a cat's smile. 3 days into the voyage, storms built low on the southern horizon. Sailors tied charms of knotted hair to the railings. Each plate dyed with crushed indigo salts that left streaks like tears along the wood. They whispered of water wraiths roused by starstone minute dust washed into the sea. Each dawn Arya practiced footwork on the deck, bare feet sliding between puddles as the ship lurched. She danced around phantom foes, letting dawn flow from shoulder to hip to air, never striking rope or sail. Galadin watched, mimicking sequences with calmer poise. When rain lashed, they removed armor and sparred shirtless. Steel against steel, muscles knotting under a drumming sky that seemed intent on washing everything untrue from their bones. One afternoon, the crow's nest called Sight of Sails. A ragged flotilla hugging the coast, square-rigged sloops festooned with purple pennants. Galadin scaled the shrouds to scan. "Slavers," she reported once returned, voice low. "Their prows show comet sigils half swallowed by black flame." Arya saw them soon after. 15 ships escorting a larger vessel, a war galley with hull painted argent, gunnels crowded by archers in lacquered armor. At its prow a figure stood beneath a crimson parasol, wind whipping silver robes around a pregnant curve. The parasol turned. Arya glimpsed a young woman's face marked by swirling tattoos that glimmered like hot coals. Her eyes met Arya's across water as though distance were but breath. A shiver rippled along Dawn. The war galley cut across Ripple's End's bow, her oars slapping water in chilling unison, then resumed her place among the escort without a single arrow loosed. That night the cog anchored in a cove to avoid pursuit. Sailors muttered mutiny if Arya and Galadin insisted on pressing toward Spicetown. The crew feared the Twilight Queen. Arya answered by handing back most of their silver and commanding the captain to sail east at dawn for safer trade. She and Galadin would take the yawl and continue alone. The captain, weighing fear against greed, accepted, though he made the sign of the mother for their souls. Before moonset, they loaded the yawl with water sacks and dried figs. Galadin lowered Comet Fong. Arya followed with Dawn. Nymeria leapt lightly, rocking the craft. The cog's lanterns faded as they rode west beneath a bandolier sky. They beached at Spicetown's outskirts 3 days later. The once bustling port lay half in ruin. Piers collapsed, storehouses splintered into tooth-like stumps. But amid wreckage rose new scaffolds of dark wood and iron, laced with chain lanterns sputtering blue oil. At harbor mouth a lighthouse had been rebuilt. Not cylindrical stone but a jagged edifice formed from fused ship keels, the top crowned by an enormous bowl of green fire that hissed smoke smelling of molten copper. They approached at dusk in a stolen fisher skiff, Galadin's clever barter for a ring set with modest pearl. Workers on the docks wore masks of hammered tin depicting closed eyes. They bowed as the skiff nudged a piling, then guided Arya and Galadin ashore wordlessly. One pressed a twisted iron token into Arya's palm, a starburst encircling a stylized womb, and gestured toward a ramp leading up the lighthouse. Inside the structure, an ascending spiral corridor glowed with glass globes filled by yellow insects fluttering lazily. Their light pulsed like heartbeats, casting each step into alternating shadow. Arya climbed with dawn unsheathed at her hip, blade wrapped in linen but still leaking faint luminescence. Galadin followed, helmet donned once more, antlers scraping rafters. At the summit chamber stood the queen, parasol discarded, robe traded for fitted mail of overlapping scales forged from silver and black starstone chips. The scale pattern formed constellations unknown to Westerosi sky. Her pregnant belly was circled by a belt of braided copper wires that sparked tiny arcs. Behind her a forge burned not red but white, bellows stoked by silent masked acolytes. On the anvil lay ingots of glossy dark metal. Beside them rested a blade-shape half-ground, long, thin, sinuous, still glowing cherry along the edges. "I know you," the queen said, voice melodic, accent ghosting of Lys and Shadowlands. "You carry dawnlight." Arya stepped onto the metal-plated dais. "Where did you learn the forge song for Star Iron?" "From Fall itself," the queen replied. "Fragments fell in my homeland beyond Azor. I listened to them sing." Her tattooed eyes glinted. "They told me day and night are lovers forever apart. Each dawn their fleeting kiss before light races from shadow's bed. I mean to bring them together." She rested a palm on her womb. "The child will be the ring that joins them, birthed in starlight and tempered in dusk." Galadin removed her helm, face taut. "You've no notion what such metal does to blood." "I have every notion." The queen held up a slender chisel, its tip black starstone. "I scored my flesh with this. See how the runes breathe." Indeed, the tattoos moved subtly, constellations drifting like real stars across skin. "Soon my blade will herald a sun that never flees." Arya remembered Iskar vanishing to ash when his sword shattered, power too great rotting its host. She pictured this queen's child forged into living altar. "Put down the hammer," she said. "Leave the shards to sleep beneath waves." The queen laughed. "Night kissed my dreams long before your dawn awakened. I cannot unlearn desire." She gestured. Acolytes drew curved daggers from sleeves and fanned out. The forge roared, spitting sparks that danced among motes of glowing insects. Galadin raised Comet Fong, but the queen did not attack. Instead, she stepped aside to reveal behind her a pillar of crystal, within which hovered dozens of star iron slivers, each spinning slowly, humming a minor chord that made Arya's vision blur. The queen spoke a word in a tongue older than Valyrian. The slivers aligned, forming a spear sharper than frost. It drifted forward, point aimed at Arya's chest. Arya whipped dawn free. Linen burnt away, revealing brilliance. She met the spear in midair. Metal kissed metal. Dawn's light rippled outward in waves of pale flame, clashing with the spear's darkness that bled violet lightning. The chamber shook. Globes of insects burst, spilling glowing motes. Acolytes scattered as shapes of light and dark wrestled like twin serpents. Galadin lunged toward the queen, but the pregnant woman chanted, arcs jumping from her belt to Galadin's armor, hurling the knight against a wall. Comet Fong clattered away. The queen seized the half-forged blade on the anvil and swung though it lacked hilt. Edge met Galadin's breastplate. Sparks carved a comet-shaped groove but did not pierce. Arya fought not merely steel but will. Each impact echoed with whispered questions. Why shouldn't night last forever? Isn't dawn's promise betrayed each sunset? She answered by remembering snow as it glittered on Winterfell's roofs, by recalling Bran's laughter before broken bones, by hearing Lamy Greenhand's dying whimper in Flea Bottom and promising no more helpless friends. Dawn answered with white radiance, slowly pushing the spear's tip backward. Metal screamed refracted chords. Nymeria bounded up spiral stairs, fangs bared. She leapt upon an acolyte, scattering others like pins. Sparks flew. The forge's heat rose, waves of shimmering haze distorting vision. Galadin rolled, grasped Comet Fong, rose inside a sheath of resolve, and charged. The queen turned, eyes blazing. Comet Fong clashed with half-blade. Star Iron shrieked. Tattoos crawled, arms of constellations wrapping Galadin's wrists like snakes. Galadin grit teeth, pushing until steel edges ground within breath of each other. Arya felt the spear falter. It splintered along the shaft as dawn's light filled cracks, then exploded into prismatic dust that winked out before touching flagstones. She whirled toward the queen just as Galadin's counterstroke severed the half-blade at midpoint. The forge roared heavenward, cyclone of fire and darkness twisting together. The queen stumbled, copper arcs sparking uncontrolled. She clutched belly, eyes suddenly wide. "The child!" she gasped. Arya rushed forward, catching the woman's shoulders as she sagged. Tattoos flickered, constellations breaking apart into drifting embers that rose and vanished. The queen's hair, once silver, dulled to ash. Her eyes became normal dark pupils. Pain racked her, but the chaotic arc stilled. Galadin kicked away the severed star iron. She met Arya's gaze, question of mercy or justice. Arya knelt, pressed Dawn's flat gently across the woman's forehead. The blade glowed soft, not searing. A sigh escaped the queen's lips, her stomach convulsed but calmed. She slumped unconscious. Coilties fled down the spiral, masks clattering. The forge's coals cooled faster than seemed possible, white fading to gray. The crystal pillar cracked, star iron slivers dropping inert. Galadin tapped one. It dulled, its song silenced. Arya exhaled, chest heaving. Nymeria padded close, nose, nudging the queen's hand. Galadin sheathed Comet Fong. "Is it finished?" "No," Arya said, voice low. "Nothing ever is. But dawn rises again." They carried the queen out before first light, descending the lighthouse as wind blew smoke out to sea. At the base, docks lay deserted. Crew fled when forge's roar shook pilings. There they found a skiff with fresh sail. They laid the queen in its hold, bound gently with linen. Dawn's soft glow calmed her spasms. When she opened her eyes hours later, memory glimmered like broken glass, but madness seemed gone. On open water, Galadin watched horizon brighten. "Where will we bear her?" "To Dragonstone," Arya answered. "The Queen of Dragons knows what becoming weapon can do to a person." She touched the silver-haired woman's brow. "Perhaps Daenerys will show her child how to walk in sunlight." The voyage northward proved quiet save for gulls. The queen, her name revealed as Aliha, drank broth, slept, and wept without tears. She spoke once. "I dreamed of endless twilight. You brought morning." Arya gave no reply. She merely set dawn beside Aliha each night, letting its warmth cradle her. When Dragonstone's smoky crags finally pierced mist, Regal swooped above in greeting, his green scales glistening like new leaves after storm. Jon awaited at the jetty, ghost at heel, unsullied ranks behind. He frowned at Aliha's frailties but welcomed her under banner of truce. Daenerys observed from the gate, eyes narrowing at mention of star iron forging. Yet seeing the fragile woman clutching a swollen belly, her iron gaze softened. They convened in the painted chamber. Arya and Galadin detailed their tale. Maesters examined Aliha, pronouncing the child healthy though heartbeat thrummed with peculiar cadence. Quick, staccato, like insect wings. Daenerys ordered the star iron ingots locked deep in vaults sealed with dragon glass, triple warded by red priests. She commanded the lighthouse of Spicetown dismantled, its green fire quenched under seawater. As summer wore on, Arya lingered on Dragonstone's terraces. She sparred with Dothraki bloodriders, their Iraq whistles slicing black air. She taught orphaned camp boys to track footprints in slag beaches. She and Jon argued strategy for filling holds with grain from arbor for northern towns. At dusk, she climbed volcanic ridges and watched molten vents pulse like slow hearts. Dawn remained sheathed at her hip, rarely drawn. Each day it glowed a little less, as though satisfied to rest. Aliha's child was born on autumn's equinox, beneath twin moons. The babe wailed like a gull, spindly arms thrashing. No shadow iron clung to her. She appeared merely human, though eyes, when they opened, gleamed faint violet dust. Eliha named her Nimra, pronouncing it with soft associate lilt that made Arya's throat tighten. The mother, grown weak from labor, asked Arya to hold the child while priests anointed her brow. Tiny fingers wrapped Arya's thumb. Dawn hummed at Arya's side yet remained unnoticed by all but the babe, whose gaze followed the blade though it was still hidden. Arya smiled, faint, new-lined. Weeks later, Arya prepared to leave. She entrusted Dawn to Daenerys' armory for a time. If darkness stirs, send for me, or draw it yourself. Daenerys traced the blade's edge with reverence. You trust the dragon's house with Dawn's burden? Arya nodded. Light belongs to all who refuse night. She kissed Jon's cheek, clasped forearms with Galladon, and knelt beside Nimra's cradle whispering a promise to visit on her name day. She departed on a black mare gifted by Ghost Hill stables, riding north along Crownland's roads speckled with travelers. Word spread of a new trade caravan system clearing bandits, of Queen Sansa's reforms ensuring minstrels were paid in grain, of maesters debating star iron properties in forged pamphlets that sold for coppers in street markets. Children drew chalk suns on tavern doors, imitating dawn's halo. Adults told tales of a wolf girl carrying mourning in her scabbard and leaving justice like breadcrumbs. Near Riverrun, she paused at a village where river clay sculptors molded tiny gray wolves, selling them for prayers. One night in the inn, she overheard farmers speaking of strange lights north of the wall, auroras of green and purple, shapes resembling dragons of ice. She listened, stirring stew, then paid for a fresh horse. Before dawn she rode again, Nymeria loping ahead. The King's Road welcomed her with crisp leaves swirling around hooves. Memory of each mile bloomed. Here Bran fell, here Hot Pie baked his first real loaf, here Yorn's cart rattled. She found Gendry at the crossroads, sweaty from hammerwork on a new bell for the inn. They shared ale by a glowing hearth. He traced the faint scar near her ribs left by the Night King's spear and shook his head. You keep collecting stories, he said. One day you'll drown in them. She grinned crooked. Let them weigh me down when I stop moving. North of Moat Cailin, early snows dusted tundra. Jon met her at Last River Fort where new palisades rose. He offered a seat on the council, but she declined with gentle squeeze of his wrist. Her road pointed east again, beyond the shivering sea where maps quieted. Rumors told of even older metals falling there, of ghost cities where mirrors talked. She wanted to see if dawn shone there too. Winter's first storm chased her to White Harbor. She booked a berth on a Braavosi whaler bound for Lorith, then Ibn. Sailors loaded barrels of preserved cod, coils of whale sinew, and crates of dragonglass candles requested by the Night's Watch. Arya walked the decks, feeling dawn restful at her hip once more, as if the sea called for its light. Departure dawn saw Sansa arrive in a swift sledge, cloak-furred white fox. She embraced Arya fiercely. Send letters, Sansa commanded. Arya promised nothing but smiles. Galladon had ridden from the south, delivering sealed scrolls to Master Wyman. Comet Court retained watchers over any star iron trade. She caught Arya's arm before boarding, gifting a polished shard of comet ore encased in amber. May it remind you light is born even in stone, Galladon said. Arya tucked it into satchel. As the whaler slid into Grey Chop, Arya stood at prow, wind tangling her hair. Nymeria huffed beside her, nose testing sea salt. Dawn glimmered faintly, reflecting a horizon-washed pewter. She whispered to sword and wolf alike, "Come, morning hunts." Hours later, White Harbor was a smear. Cold sun climbed, painting path across water like molten silver. The ship's prow cleaved it, scattering flakes of daylight. Each ripple sprang outward across leagues, carrying possibility. Somewhere beyond, new darkness waited, curious, inevitable. Arya's hand brushed dawn. The blade answered with soft warmth, quieter than memory, older than prophecy, sure as breath. She closed her eyes, let the horizon pull her forward, and the story marched on, unhurried, inexhaustible, riding each sunrise into pages yet blank but already humming with the promise of more light. The wind that swept along the shivering sea came knife-thin and metallic, its keening caught in the rigging like a harp string plucked by ghosts. Arya learned quickly to keep her cloak cinched tight, for gaps welcomed sleet that numbed flesh and breaths, and the sailors, with brows tattooed in Ibonese runes to ward off deep-water leviathans, whispered that when ice-needled wind moaned at night it was the sea's memory of drowning men. She listened anyway, perched at the prow beside Nymeria, who seemed to breathe frost without shudder. Below decks the crew huddled around oily braziers, murmuring prayers to the many-faced god, to the black goat of Qohor, to the drowned god. Any ear that might catch a plea in ice-heavy air. Arya kept her own counsel and let dawn's muted glow warm her spine. Days stretched without sight of land. Cloud banks scud low and so dense they erased sun and moon alike. The world shrank to deckboards that rattled underfoot and the crests of slate-colored waves slapping hull. When the winds calmed at last, the sea glassed smooth and clear as mirror smoke, reflecting a sky so pale it seemed bleached of stories. On the fourth such still morning the captain, broad-shouldered Darrow the whale son, beard clotted with salt crystals, called Arya aft and pointed where water darkened in a vast ring. "The White Maw," he grunted. "Deepest pit this side of the sunset sea. Strange things surface here." As if on cue, bubbles as large as barrow stones erupted, followed by an arm's-length shard of black ice that floated upright, spinning like a compass needle. It hummed faintly. Arya reached out with sense rather than sight. Dawn quivered beneath cloak, neither alarmed nor welcoming, merely attentive. She leaned over gunwale. Reflected pupils stared back, rimmed by flecks of aurora pigments drifting beneath the ice shard. Captain Darrow quietly ordered oars shipped. No one spoke until the shard toppled, bobbed once, and sank. "When such shards break surface," Darrow said softly, "creatures below grow restless. A cousin vessel sailed through here last spring, returned weeks late with half her hull gnawed." No word from the captain but crazed laughter. His eyes found Arya's. "If we turn northward 2 days, we strike pack ice that hides lanes to Lorith. Safer than the Maw." "Safer never means safe," Arya answered, but she allowed the diversion. Better to circle peril than let the crew's resolve sour. As sailors bent to sweeps, Nymeria remained at prow, tail lashing, golden eyes fixed on the calm circle where the shard had drowned. 3 nights later lights blossomed overhead, curtains of emerald and amethyst rippling across firmament, as if some great furnace beyond the world had cracked a door. Men cheered, women wept, yet dawn's glow dimmed until almost invisible, as though reluctant to compete. Arya lay on deck plank, palms open, letting the cold chew her skin while she watched colors braid through stars. In the Dragon Forge at Dragonstone the auroras might have stolen wits, but here, at the world's lip, they felt part of the air's own breath. She fell asleep counting pulses of violet flicker. The ship made Lority Harbor under one dawn. Its famed mazes of marble had lost luster in harsh salt gales, but dockworkers still donned feathered half-masks and spoke in riddles of distance walked and songs half-remembered. Arya bartered a pouch of Winterfell silver stags for fur-lined boots and a pack of sealskin provisions. Darrow planned 3 days' respite before continuing to Ibn. Arya elected to travel overland across the Seal Road, famed for merchant trains of mammoth-drawn sledges. On a frosty plaza flanked by broken obelisks, she met a trader named Kellum Weiss who claimed knowledge of every mile between Lorith and the Lonely Light. His caravan of low-slung wagons bristled with crossbow quivers and stank of whale blubber, an odor that lingered long after nose surrendered. During the first week's march, Arya said little. She rode a shaggy-step pony with a stubborn gait, letting conversations ebb while she studied horizon for threats. At night, she sharpened a trio of smaller blades and watched dawn, wrapped and lashed across saddle, glimmer faintly whenever moonlight struck oilskins. One dusk, she noticed Kellum staring at the bundle. "That blade shines without sun," he observed, testing friendly tone. "Sliced any ghosts with it?" "A few," Arya replied. "Most bleed like us." Kellum grunted. "Steel that glows fetches more than ambergris in Ibn." Be wary of drunk harpooners. His advice proved prescient. 2 nights later, while caravan camped beside hot springs steaming through snow crust, a trio of Ibani's hands attempted to pry Dawn free while Arya drifted in shallow sleep. Nymeria's low snarl woke her. She sprang, moved through hot mist like memory, and placed cold steel of a dirk beneath the foremost thief's chin before he fully straightened. The others fled. She let them. The would-be thief remained kneeling while Kellam's guards dragged him away. Dawn never left its wrappings. Yet each soldier swore later they saw pale fire dancing along the cloth. South of Morash they encountered the first refugees. Ragged shadows pushing sledges loaded with seal meat and bird skins. Their chief, an old woman with beard longer than her hair, claimed ice howlers, white wolves big as watchtowers, had begun to harry coastal huts. She showed a tusk scorched at tip. "Fire won't scare them," she rasped. Eyes like star pieces, hungry for heat. Arya's stomach tightened. Dawn tingled faintly. Nymeria growled toward north wind. Caravan momentum slowed. Traders muttered of turning back or circling east to Sarna ruins. Arya volunteered to scout ahead, taking only Nymeria and a single spare blade. Kellam protested. Too far, too cold, too many howlers. But Arya assured him she'd meet them at Ib Sar, where the Amber Lantern Festival would clog streets for a fortnight. She left before dawn. Snow under ponies' hooves squeaked like fresh parchment. They traveled 2 days without sight of ice wolves. Stars sharpened overhead, hard as flint. On third dusk, they crested a dune of powdery snow and found a carcass. A bearded seal twice Arya's height, flensed by something with serrated claws. Steam still rose from exposed muscle, though air cracked breath into rime. Nymeria circled, hackles bristling. A track of paw prints led inland, each print half again the size of Arya's torso, toe tips gouging trenches. She dismounted, crouched, touched packed snow within a print. Warm. The prints angled west toward a ridge. She followed on foot, pony tethered behind. They soon glimpsed flicker of orange between boulders. She signaled Nymeria low. Creeping, she found a cleft sheltered from wind where a circle of stones contained a sputtering fire of dung and branches. Beside it hunkered a man swathed in patched furs, skin dusky, nose and cheeks painted white. He was sharpening a spearhead of chipped black stone. At first Arya thought him alone. Then she saw chained at his ankle a young white-pelted wolf, half-grown yet enormous, muzzle bound in leather. Its eyes gleamed star-metal blue. The spearmaker sensed her and spun, spear leveled. They circled. The man spoke in Valyrian hiss, words ragged. "Wolf mother, stay." His gaze darted to Nymeria, then Arya. He lowered spear slowly. "You follow Prince," he guessed. Ardor bled from voice, replaced by wariness. Arya eyed the chained cub. "Yours." "Found orphan," he replied. "Pack hunts humans now. They severed their own old ties." He tapped his temple. "Star metal frenzy." He gestured at spearhead. "Stone from sky holes. Cuts them." He produced a small ingot similar to shards Arya'd seen at Lighthouse. Arya approached, dawn vibrating beneath cloak. "Free the wolf," she said. He grimaced. "Cannot. It leads me. I track pack, then kill before they reach coast villages. Chains lead only to fear." She unwound Dawn, letting dull glow spill. The cub whined, eyes shifting from blue to pale frost. The man inhaled as if tasting dawnlit air for first time in years. Arya knelt, offered sword hilt forward. "A better tool," she suggested. "If you understand its promise." His hands shook. He dared not touch. "It shines warm. Yours by sky's decree. Light belongs to anyone who walks beyond night." She rested blade tip to earth. The cub yelped through muzzle, straining. Nymeria approached, sniffed. Slowly the man removed muzzle strap, unlatched ankle chain. The young wolf padded free, sniffed Arya's boots, then Nymeria's muzzle. A rumble of recognition passed. Dead pack lines rejoined. The man introduced himself as Shucker, last hunter of the Sedmi peoples who once roamed Seal Ice. Star metal had fallen near his village year prior. Shards melted into water holes, poisoning packs. Wolves turned on hunters. Survivors fled south. Shukr remained behind to break curse. Arya listened by firelight. Dawn's warmth spread among them like shared memory. At dawn they tracked wolf prints together. Shukr guiding by scent of tainted blood, Arya reading snow drifts. They found the pack at dusk. 8 massive howlers sleeping in a hollow crater where black glass jutted. The glass pulsed faint violet. Arya understood. Shards buried here shaped feral hunger. She and Shukr circled. Nymeria and cub slunk wide arcs. When wind hushed, Arya drew dawn. Glow brightened, falling like candlelight upon wolves' pelts. One stirred, snarled, eyes blazing star blue. Shukr's spear twitched forward, but Arya raised palm. She stepped closer, blade angled down in peace. The wolves rose, hackle rippling frost, but they hesitated, nostrils flaring at dawn scent. Nymeria appeared beside Leader, head lowered. Seconds stretched. Then Leader barked low. Pack exhaled as one, star blue fading to pale ice. They trotted past Arya, tongues lolling, wild again but calmed. At center of crater remained the shard outcrop.
Down sang, à soft tremigne.
Arya drove blade point into black glass. Light raced through fractures. Glass hissed, combusted into pillars of vapor that spiraled skyward, carrying violet sparks that died upon starlight. The land side, Shukr knelt, pressing brow to snow. In following days, word spread among caravans of how ice howlers vanished from coasts. Arya and Shukr parted at Ibsar. He journeyed west to rejoin scattered Sedmi. She continued south to ports where the whaler awaited, its hull now patched with new ivory plating. Kellum greeted her with astonishment, for he'd wagered she was frost food. They feasted under amber lanterns. Merchants sang of markets beyond the painted mountains where star iron fetched kingdoms. Arya drank fermented goat milk and told no tales. When at last ship reached Ibn proper, night lingered even at midday beneath heavy clouds that shed slow flakes the color of lead filings. Harbor quays emitted growls of mammoth-bone cranes hoisting whale carcasses. While crew sold blubber to fat-cloaked gilders, Arya wandered to a hall carved into basalt cliff. Inside, a council of graybeards debated lumps of meteor glass on granite dais. One piece resembled a heart half-melted. It beat faintly iridescent. A translator whispered that the council sought to ignite it as beacon guiding traders through polar storms. Arya approached dais, laid dawn beside heart shard. The shard pulsed stronger. Color shifted to purest white, then shattered into shimmering dust that spiraled like snow caught in updraft. Council members gasped. One wept. Arya reclaimed dawn and left without word. From Ibn, ships seldom sailed farther east than the islands of the Leaner, but Captain Darrow owed debt to stark coin and curiosity. He hired extra hands, stocked salted narwhal, and steered whaler toward polar twilight, skirting bergs that groaned like titans dreaming. On 12th day out they entered flow fields where black water gleamed between ice plateaus. Here auroras danced constant, sky a furnace of shifting hue. One night a column of light ascended from horizon, pillar of green touched by crack of gold, guiding them like a lantern. They followed. The pillar resolved into a mountain of glass that rose straight from sea, ridged and faceted. Waves dashed themselves against its base, casting wreaths of foam that froze midair. Darrow refused to anchor. Arya loaded a launch anyway. Nymeria leapt beside her, and they rode into numb silence. Near base of Glass Mountain, water turned milky with swirling motes, stardust from countless shards. Arya's breath crystallized in throat. She beached upon narrow shelf of ice where glass leaned overhead. Dawn shone brilliant, feeding color into mountain. Veins of light snaked upward like lightning trapped in stone. She climbed each handhold, freezing under fingers, then melting where dawn's warmth radiated. At summit she found a plateau ringed by spires that sang high notes in wind. Center stood an altar of fused glass shaped like broken crown. Inside crown hovered a sphere, swirling cosmos captured, lights flickering. Jagged fissures spider-webbed its surface, leaking pricks of darkness rather than light. Arya sensed Fracture's hunger. If sphere shattered, shards might seed endless twilights. But perhaps, like any heart, it could be mended. She unsheathed Dawn. The blade blazed brighter than ever, music cascading along fuller. She poised point to sphere, not to pierce but to stitch. Light spilled, weaving threads across fissures. Cracks knitted, darkness retreated. Dawn's glow drained, its edge dulling to plain steel color. Sphere brightened until surface showed only pure dawn white. When work finished, dawn white radiance softened, cycling back into blade. Dawn glimmered anew, yet subtler, as if content. Sphere sank into altar, glass crown flowed closed. Mountain's song lowered to hum that matched Arya's heartbeat. She descended at daybreak, sun finally clearing horizon after days cloaked by storm. Darrow stared as she rode back, words lost. Throughout voyage home, the auroras dimmed, replaced by skies of honest blue. Months later, Arya stepped onto Dragonstone's docks, salt crust flaking from cloak. She found Nimra toddling along gallery holding Eliha's finger, violet dust eyes wide. The babe giggled when dawn flashed like a tiny sunrise. Daenerys greeted Arya with tired relief. Her realm teemed with rebuilding, but Star Iron talk had faded. That night Arya sat with Jon by brazier on windswept terrace. She shared story of Glass Mountain. Jon listened, silent. When she finished he asked, "Does dawn finally rest?" Arya looked at horizon where first stars winked. "Rest is a turn in the dance. Light steps back so dark may breathe, then dances again." She sheathed dawn, felt its hum settle. Weeks bled into winter's edge. On last eve before Arya planned to depart, this time south to Summer Isles where sky burned different hues, a raven arrived with Sansa's seal. Winterfell's crypt heart tree dreamt of dire wolves circling Silver Sea, and of a comet returned. The message ended with 4 simple words: "Come witness new dawn." Arya smiled. She stowed gear. At dawn she mounted a fresh courser, Nymeria ranging ahead. Galladon rode at gate, having crossed seas on fast sloop. They clasped arms and spurred northward. Road dust buoyed behind, shimmering in sun. Dawn hung at Arya's hip, weight light as secret. Ahead lay new stories, some carved in ice, some in leaf, others still waiting in blanks between constellations. But the blade's song spoke steady promise. Whenever night rose reared and roared, there would always exist someone, somewhere, walking toward horizon with dawn in their hand, whether wolf girl or star knight or child unborn. And each step would carve a sliver of morning into the world, bright enough to teach even darkness to dream of light. The sleet that stripped leaves from the aspens of the neck arrived early that year, rattling against Arya's greaves as she and Galladon urged their mounts across causeways slick with moss. The riverlands behind them lay quiet beneath first snows, but here the air smelled of peat smoke and standing water, and ravens paced skeletal branches as though debating which way dawn would tilt. Sansa's summons, brief, formal, penned in her small, decisive hand, sat folded in Arya's satchel like a heartbeat. "Come witness new dawn." The message offered no detail beyond a mark of urgency, and that alone gnawed at Arya more than 1,000 leagues of unknown sky. They rode single file along the narrow boards of the Greenway's causeway, ponies picking careful steps between half-frozen puddles that mirrored slate clouds. Nymeria loped ahead, so silent she appeared a ripple of twilight across reeds. Once she paused to drink from a mirror-still pool and her reflection widened into something else, an impossible shape 20 times her size before the surface stilled again. Galladon muttered quiet prayers to nameless gods and touched the antler prongs of her helm each time marsh mist drifted too close, as if horns might steer dread away. Late on the second night, when the sky cracked with purple lightning far to the east, they found an abandoned ferry shack on a rise of shale. The roof had collapsed, but the hearth stood, half choked by tumbleweed. Arya built a smokeless fire, fed it splinters until soft glow beat back the cold. Dawn, resting across her lap in its canvas wrap, reflected orange in hushed flickers. Galladon removed breastplate, laid her own pale blade at arm's reach, and watched flames as though reading old prophecies in the tongue of sparks. "Do you think your sister's letter speaks of war?" she asked at last. "War walks even in peace," Arya answered, feeding another shard of willow to the coals. "But I feel no iron in her words. Only weight." Galladon raised brow. "Weight of what?" "Change," Arya said. "Heavier than steel if carried wrong." They slept in turns, Nymeria guarding the doorway, ear twitching with every hoot of owls hunting field mice along the half-frozen banks. In darkest watch, Arya woke from a dream of quiet lanterns floating up a black sky, each lantern bearing a piece of Winterfell's great heart tree carved into a tiny ship. She tasted pine sap and old blood. Dawn pulsed faintly, neither warning nor welcome, merely echo of some turning gear within the world's long-hidden clockwork. At dawn, a courier found them, a young umber outrider astride a frost-dappled roan, cheeks raw from wind. He carried a second letter sealed in direwolf wax. Arya slid it with thumbnail, tucked pony's reins between knees, and scanned Sansa's hurried scrawl. "The doors will open at midnight on the full moon.
No later.
Come with trust, leave arms outside stone. Bran calls the living and the remembered both. He needs you at the well beneath the world." The courier waited, breath frosting, eyes darting to Nymeria. "Queen Sansa said you'd know the old paths, my lady." Arya folded the letter.
Eva vokt vers.
She glanced at Galladon. "We leave the road. There's a worm walk through the willows that cuts half a day if you know to follow crow feathers." They pushed north into thickets where snow kissed water so lightly it lingered, reluctant to melt or freeze. The path twisted beneath leaning trees whose bark peeled in pale ribbons like old parchment. Occasionally black feathers marked forked turns, placed by ravens none but Bran could command. Once Arya glimpsed shapes between trunks, children of the forest, perhaps, or shadows of memory, but they vanished before her horse's breath curled out. By noon the soil firmed beneath hooves. Dry grasses, brittle with frost, whispered along their leggings. Hills parted ahead to reveal Moat Caelin's toppled towers thrust up like broken spears from a quilt of reed beds. The banners atop those towers now bore twin sigils, direwolf and three-eyed raven. Pickets of archers hailed them before allowing passage. Galladon's antler helm drew wide eyes. Dawn's hilt drew silence. They rode under shattered stone arches where ravens perched three to a ledge, each tilting head in what felt unervingly like greeting. Beyond Moat Caelin stretched the King's Road, an artery frozen in rime, silver rivulets of meltwater flossing wheel ruts. Their horses picked up speed. Night fell quick, bruising the horizon violet. Lanterns lit watch posts every mile now. From each, a pair of black brothers saluted, their cloaks stitched with a new sigil, a rising sun stitched above the wall. Some recognized Arya, whispers raced ahead. She ignored them, eyes fixed on northern glow shimmering faint like memory of the aurora she'd left behind at the shivering sea, as if dawn and dusk traded greetings across the world. On the fourth day, Winterfell's ramparts loomed, candlelit windows winking between crenellations. Snow drifted from low clouds. Wind carried scent of juniper smoke from the newly repaired smithy. Trumpets did not sound, though Arya sensed watchers behind each arrow slit. She dismounted at the gate, unbuckled Dawn, cradled blade in both palms, and passed it to a guardsman she knew by face though not by name. He swallowed hard, accepted the sword with something like fear wrapped in awe, and placed it atop an oaken stand that two more guards carried into a side room. Galladon surrendered Cometfong likewise. Even Nymeria was asked to remain beyond the inner ward, a request met with a low rumble until Arya knelt, pressing brow to the direwolves and murmuring an old word in first tongue. Nymeria settled outside the gatehouse, eyes burning amber beneath a drifted hood of snow. Sansa greeted them alone in the entry yard. She wore a cloak of white fox lined with gray satin, no crown, no brooch save a small carved weirwood leaf at her throat. Her cheeks were wind-kissed, her gaze steady, but sleepless nights painted half-moons beneath her eyes. "Thank you for heeding me." She took Arya's gloves in both hands. "Bran waits." Galladon bowed. Sansa acknowledged with brief nod, then led them across yard stones still warm where new-laid braziers melted ice. Workers hauled timbers toward the great hall. Springs for a new bell were being hoisted to the rookery. Everywhere wagons brimmed with rushes for fresh bedding. Yet none of the bustle felt urgent like war. It felt anticipatory, as if Winterfell prepared for a harvest though fields lay frozen. Inside the hall, fires blazed tall. Lords and ladies thronged benches but spoke in hushed voices, each face lit by wonder and dread. Path opened as Arya passed. At the dais stood a single seat wrought from carved weirwood where Bran sat, cloak of raven feathers draped across shoulders. His eyes, no longer white-rolled as in green-sight trances, but vivid, alive, and luminous with threads of green and gold swirling like distant suns, fixed on Arya with a softness that belied their cosmic depth. "Arya," he said, voice both childlike and immeasurably old, each word echoing faint, as though spoken by many mouths at once. "You have walked the edge of dawn until the blade itself grew weary. Now dawn must drink from deeper well." She ascended steps, knelt. "I carry no blade tonight." Bran's head tilted. "Every breath is a blade when wielded by will. But come, there is someone who must see through you. The well awaits." Behind the dais a doorway had been widened, rough stone chiseled to allow Bran's wheeled chair, but tonight he rose, unaided, to stand. A gasp rippled among witnesses. Bran offered no explanation. He simply took Sansa's arm and began down the newly carved passage. Arya and Galladon followed. The corridor sloped downward, torchlight casting webs of shadow over roots protruding from stone. They passed water trickling from unseen fissures. Faint echoes hinted of vast emptiness below the castle. The passage ended at a circular chamber, domed and lined with blackwood panels carved with runes older than first men. At chamber's center yawned a well wide enough to swallow a wagon. Its edge was ringed by railings of heartwood bound with bronze. Pale vapors drifted up, smelling of cold earth after rain. Bran released Sansa's arm and stepped barefoot to the rim. He closed eyes. Runes along walls ignited with moss-green luminescence, casting wavery light across faces. Galladon whispered, "This would remembers farther back than speech." Bran spoke. "Beneath Winterfell's foundations flow the waters that fed the first heart tree planted here. They are memory, unchanged since snow first touched stone. The children called it the Well of Echoes. Tonight echo becomes chorus." He turned to Arya. "You are to carry dawn inside, to where water meets root, and offer what only a mortal may give." Arya frowned. "I left dawn above at your command." Bran extended hand. Sansa drew from beneath her cloak a small bundle, something long, wrapped in gray linen. Arya's breath caught. Sansa unrolled cloth to reveal Dawn's blade, but no longer steel. The metal had transmuted. Pale still, yet threaded through with veins of raw weirwood, flecks of obsidian, and tiny motes of starglow that drifted just beneath surface as though blade held a night sky within. The hilt had sprouted living wood, smooth and cool, dyed faint red, pulsed with heartbeat of sap. "How?" Arya began. "When you surrendered the sword," Sansa said quietly, "Bran asked that it drink from the roots around God's wood while you entered. The weirwood accepted, weaving growth through steel as easily as dream though sleeper. Dawn is now seed and scythe both." Bran gestured. "Take it and descend." Stairs spiraled down into darkness, roots winding along walls like petrified serpents. Arya wrapped fingers around new-grown hilt. Warmth breathed through palm, neither fire nor sunlight but something akin to the private heat of sprouting seeds. Galladon moved to follow, but Bran lifted palm. "Only the seed-bearer walks this depth." He offered no further counsel. Arya strode downward. Torches did not line this stair. Instead, walls glimmered faint, each root veined with foxfire. She felt weight shift in her chest. Not fear, not anticipation, but recognition, as if some part of her had slept below Winterfell since her blood-first cry. Dawn shone stronger with each step, until its stair's terminus a vast hollow opened. A cavern whose ceiling vanished into root silhouettes, whose floor was an ink-black lake dotted by lily pads of ghost-pale fungi. A single stepping-stone path of weirwood rounds led across water toward a slab of stone shaped like altar. Arya stepped onto first disc, Ripples flared out in rings of silver phosphor. She moved, heartbeat keeping cadence with subtle thrum of sword. When she reached altar, she saw a pool carved in its center, water still, surface reflecting not her face but shifting scenes. Her father in godswood beneath red leaves, Gendry hammering iron sparks, Nymeria running across golden dunes, the Night King shattering, a glass mountain singing under aurora blaze, Eliha's child reaching for her finger. Voice drifted across water, older than ice. Memory asks only to be named. Arya peered into gloom. Shapes stood at cavern edges. Shadow people half merged with root and rock. Specters of Starks lost, of faces she'd worn, of victims slain by mercy or vengeance. They watched with quiet eyes. Above them ravens perched, each wing beat shedding motes of stardust. Arya laid Dawn across pool.
Blijdstip touched water. Pijl ripples raced outward.
The sword brightened, runes along veins flaring, and liquid rose in slender column to wrap weapon. Water crystallized into sheath of ice as thin as breath, then cracked away, leaving steel shining with renewed dawn glow now braided through by thin red filaments resembling threads of sap. The pool dimmed. Reflections faded until only water remained, dark and waiting. Voice spoke again, from everywhere and nowhere. "What price will you pay for what you take?" Arya breathed. "I offer names," she said, voice echoing. "Those I carry, those I let go." She listed them quietly. Joffrey, Cersei, the Tickler, Marintrant, Polliver, Rorge, Weiss, Raff, Gregor, the Night King, Iskar, the Star Queen. Each utterance drifted across water, became mote of light that settled upon blade. "They weighed my steps," she continued. "Now let their stories bind dawn. So morning remembers night earned." Silence followed. Then a sigh like snow sliding from pine-shook cavern. Water calmed to mirror again. Dawn's glow settled to gentle radiance equal to new moon's first silver. A soft chime rang, neither metal nor glass. A note of accord. Arya lifted sword. It felt lighter, yet emotion pooled in wrist. Sorrow, mercy, triumph, grief, blended into tempered quiet. She turned. Shadows around cavern bowed. Faces blurred, yet she sensed smiles beneath sorrow. Steps across discs echoed soft until stare swallowed her. At top, Bran awaited near rail, still upright though leaning upon a carved staff grown from same root that had threaded dawn. He studied blade, eyes reflecting twin lights, wolf's amber, raven's midnight. "Now dawn is woven with memory," he murmured. "It will never hunger for sacrifice again. It will answer only to names." Sansa exhaled, shoulders easing as though heavy mantles slipped. Galladon regarded transformed sword with awe untainted by envy. "What now?" she asked Bran. Bran's gaze drifted upward, seeing beyond stone to snow-kissed night. The wall weakens, not from sorcery, but from forgetting. For every stone pulled to repair keep, a memory lost seeps north. Dawn must walk the wall's length. Its light will bind cracks. Sansa nodded. "We cannot spare many men, but the Night's Watch stands ready." "My path is north again," Arya said. She glanced to Sansa, whose eyes brimmed unshed tears. Neither spoke apology. Their bond required none. Galladon laid hand atop Arya's fist. "Comet Court rides beside you." Preparations unfurled in hours. Black brothers selected, horses outfitted with rune-etched horseshoes, wagons filled with weirwood shavings to kindle altars. Arya reunited with Nymeria, stroking fur as stars wheeled overhead. Dawn at her hip no longer glowed visible. Instead, warmth pulsed scarcely perceptible. Yet every raven on Winterfell's roofs turned heads to follow its passage. Before departure, Bran offered final words. "Remember, names are seeds. Plant them with care." He smiled faint, eyes weathering centuries in blink. "And give Jon my thanks for teaching dragons to dream of snowdrops." The column set out at twilight. No fanfare, only crunch of fresh snow and low murmur of vows shared in hush. They passed Wintertown, where small folk lit lanterns shaped like suns, tying them to poles along roads so travelers would see brightness ahead. Beyond last hearth, winter unleashed true teeth. Blizzards swirling so dense riders vanished 5 paces ahead, ice spears stabbing from trees. Yet dawn's unseen presence carved corridor through storm. Snowflakes melted in midair, then refroze behind column, leaving tunnel of glittering hoarfrost. Brothers marveled, calling it the Hall of Crystal Dawn. One night, as they camped in ruins of Queen's Crown, ghosts of past watchmen drifted among towers, saluting. Arya stood vigil atop parapet where she'd once shot arrows with Jon as children. Wind carried memory of his laugh, and dawn hummed content. At the wall's shadow, the party halted. Frost-shattered stone littered forest floor where giants once battered gate. Rangers had begun patchwork repairs, but cracks spidered skyward. Arya approached Iceface, laid palm. Cold surged, yet beneath surface she heard faint thrum. Heart of wall, centuries deep, beating slower with each forgotten vow. She unsheathed dawn. No flare of light erupted. Instead, a breath of mist drifted from blade, curling into runes across ice. Arya traced letters with tip, naming each watchman who died defending realm, each wildling who'd bent knee to protect hearth, each spearwife who'd fought at Hardhome. Every name etched glowing mark that sealed cracks. Galladon's knights took turns reciting names from annals until voice shook. Even the Night's Watch recruits, young and raw, spoke names they'd never heard, guided by memory's whisper. 3 days they carved names until ice sang with quiet chorus. On the dawn of 4th day, sun rose, spilling light through newly mended ice, refracting into rainbow ghosts across snow. For first time in living memory, the wall shone not blue but pearlescent. A raven landed on Arya's shoulder, feathers white-tipped like frost. It rasped a single word into ear, home. She smiled, tears freezing on lashes. That evening, with work done and fires crackling, she sat beside Nymeria at edge of haunted forest. Galladon joined, offering skin of warmed cider. Stars kindled overhead, the same stars that had guided her across seas, across death's doorstep, across glass mountains singing. Dawn rested on lap, calm as sleeping child. Galladon broke silence. Will you ever lay it down? Arya considered. Dawn isn't burden, it's promise. Promises live by being carried forward, not by being kept locked away. Forward to where? Wherever morning needs walking. She gazed north, where night glimmered with faint aurora still, colors subdued but persistent. There are lands beyond maps, stories wait hungry, perhaps memories well flows under every world, and names their need lifting too. Galladon raised skin. To memory, then, Arya clinked cups, and to dawn, they drank. Somewhere high a great eagle shrieked. Wolves answered, their chorus weaving through pine and ice. Fire sparks swirled upward, vanishing into night that would, as always, give way to sunrise. And when that sun crested mountain spines, its rays would find a wolf girl, a star knight, and a blade no longer merely steel but living testament to every breath, every name, every shard of darkness turned toward light by the simple act of being carried onward. The journey never ended, paths only branched. Yet in each branching Arya Stark felt weight of sword ease, memory shared as memory halved, and in that lightness she discovered the true gift of dawn. Not to banish night for all time, but to walk with it, teaching shadow how to hold stories without breaking. So she rose as first bird trilled, strapped dawn-woven blade across shoulder, and stepped into fresh-fallen snow, leaving behind prints that glittered a moment in nascent light before filling softly, softly, beneath bright new sky.